Hey, everybody, Brian King here. I'm so glad that you joined us. I'm very excited. This is my second episode of The Heart of the Matter. And what I really want to start off with is the fact that today is the 14th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on September 11th. And that was really something that was not only traumatic for the country, but it was also something that brought us together as a nation. Something, unfortunately, that we haven't seen in a long time. You know, we're in the midst of a presidential election, and everybody's chomping at the bit. People are at each other's throats, and people don't seem to remember what it's like to be united anymore. And it's just crazy making. It's amazing what short-term memory loss we've all experienced over the years. So as far as my memories of September 11th, I was married to my now ex. She was pregnant with my second son, Aiden, who is now 13. And she was getting ready to go to a doctor's appointment. I was getting ready to go to work. And we were watching the Today Show. And I think it was Matt Lauer started mentioning that, hey, we just got word a plane accidentally flew into one of the World Trade Centers. And it all kind of spiraled down from that. Once I figured out what was happening, I decided I was not leaving my house that day. My wife still went to the doctor's appointment. Needless to say, her blood pressure was through the roof. But in the days that followed, I saw a lot of mixed emotions among people. Some that were able to compartmentalize it and say, hey, well, you know, I've got things to do. I can't worry about that. I need to get on with my life. I was paralyzed for a little while. I tend to feel emotions very strongly, and the intensity of an event like that just really hit my heart. I started empathizing for all the people that were suffering the loss of loved ones, of their own lives, you know, of colleagues. And I didn't personally lose anyone on September 11th. And even though you may not have, as human beings, we've all experienced the feeling of loss at some point in our lives, whether it's the loss of a marriage, the death of a parent, the loss of a job. So the important thing to understand is it's not a competition. It's not a matter of who felt greater loss than somebody else. We all experience it in our own way. I mean, empathy is a bit of a misnomer in that it suggests that you know what somebody else feels like. You don't. You're not that person. What you do understand is your experience of that. You know sadness from your perspective. You know happy from your perspective, and so on. You also know loss from your perspective. So you empathize the best you can. What matters most of all is that you're present. You're there to listen to the other person's story. And I'm seeing my good friend Deborah, who is watching. I'm going to open up that seat with a little plus sign, and hopefully she'll be able to jump in and be part of the conversation with us, because she just has an amazing story. And I'm hoping that we'll actually get a chance to hear it. Until that point, please share your memories of September 11th. Tell us what it was like for you on that day. And what were some of the first steps that you took to start bouncing back from it? And if you're not comfortable, jumping into the fray here and being part of a conversation, go ahead and enter something in the chat box, because that's just as good as anything. What matters is that you're putting it out there. You're sharing your story with us, and you're letting us join you in that moment. Because, as I mentioned, we're really having a hard time coming together as a country. And somehow we need to rediscover that, because some of our so-called leaders are doing as piss poor a job as possible when it comes to showing us how to be united, how to be together. Because if you're going to lead this country, Man, how can you lead us if you're trying to make your constituency pissed off at everybody else? That doesn't work. You have to lead us all. You have to give us all something to rally around. So, my little soapbox aside, share some of your stories. Don't be shy. That's why we're here, to have this conversation. I can think about the opportunities that I've had to practice resilience on every anniversary, not just of September 11th, but some people celebrate the anniversaries of the death of a spouse, the death of a parent. I'm a frequent flyer on Facebook, and I see frequently people are sharing photos of their mother who passed, their dad that passed, talking about how much they miss them, how much they were spending their birthday with them. And one thing I don't get a sense of is, has the story changed over the years for these people? Do they still feel the loss as raw and as real as they did the day they lost that person? Or have they found a way to find some peace with it? Because I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I was actually, now I remember what it was. I was doing a 45-minute podcast for a group that focuses on how to be resilient when you experience a tough breakup, like the end of an engagement, the end of a marriage after 17 years. And one person asked, how do you know when you're over it? How do you know when you're feeling better? My response was, when you can tell the story without reliving it. When it becomes much more factual. I'm not talking intellectual here, where you're spending all your time in your head, you're not feeling anything. Because when it comes to my divorce, which is now about 6-7 years in the past, when it comes to my cancer experience, which is 27 years ago, there was a time where I would talk about those things and my mood would immediately drop. I'd start feeling the sadness. My heart would start racing in a mini panic attack as I started to relive those fears or relive that anger again. But as the years went on, I could tell the story and the bite wasn't as severe. Now I can tell the story and maybe the tone in my voice will change a little bit as I'm thinking about how solemn a time it was, but I'm not reliving the pain. It's not ruining my day like it used to. And what that indicates is that a lot of healing has taken place. It's not quite as deep anymore. It doesn't hurt the same way it once did. And when it comes to your specific losses, I hope you're experiencing the same kind of experience. Patricia Ann just chimed in on something. Hey, Patricia Ann, I just opened up one of the seats. If you want to jump in here and be part of the conversation, I would absolutely love to hear more about what you just posted. Don't be shy. I only bite if you try to steal my chocolate. Since you're not right next to me, I don't think we're going to have that problem. So feel free and grab the seat. She doesn't have her mic and headphones. If you've got a mic on your computer, that's as good as gold, because we're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking for interaction. So it doesn't have to be a major setup. Look at me. I'm wearing my earbuds, Deborah, same thing. There should be the plus sign there. And if you just click on it, it should let you right in. And if it doesn't, well, then I need to learn how to use this better. I wonder if I'm doing something wrong here. There we go. Are you there,
Hi,
Deb?
I'm here.
Woo-hoo!
Woohoo! Finally, man.
Technology working, rock and roll. Everybody, please welcome my good friend, Deborah Sunderland.
Hi, everyone.
She is an amazing human being. I'll give you a little background because I want to get to the heart of the matter, which is what we're all about. Deborah is a leadership coach, an executive coach, sometimes coaching Brian when he has his head up his butt. She's really good at that. She's also a competitive bicyclist, which is at the heart of her personal story of resilience. Deborah survived a catastrophic bike crash that changed her life forever. And I will let her tell you the story. And please listen intently to this, because after she tells it, we are going to get into the powerful lessons that came out of that experience. So, Deborah, please share with us what happened on that fateful day.
Thank you for having me, Brian. Thank you for your kind words. You're awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Like Brian, I've had many things to overcome in my life, and I've learned to choose how I'm going to deal with that, how I'm going to see it, and it's always an awesome growth opportunity. On my fateful day, it was June 1st. It was a beautiful spring day, and I was going in ready, strong, trained with my coach all winter, ready to podium that day in Glencoe. I always felt and still believe that putting people first is the most important thing. So I'd look around when I stepped to the line. Who do I know? How can I help them feel less anxious? How can I feel less anxious myself as I'm about to step forward into a pack of people racing one-on-one, close in a pack, not knowing if anyone's going to crash, what typically does happen in a cycling race. And at this criterium, it was a large group of women, 52, larger than I normally race. But I was ready, I was strong, and I was ready to put it all forward and be my best. With 3 laps to go, taking the turns maybe 40 miles an hour at times, I somehow was bumped and went sprawling to the ground. And when I hit the ground, I hit my pavement hit my head really hard on the curb, shattered and crushed 9 ribs, separated my shoulder, punctured my lung, cracked my skull, and the hit to my head was so severe that I started convulsing right away. 5 paramedics and a race doctor came, and they got me quickly into the ambulance and took me to a trauma 1. And on the ride there, my family was called. My children were also on their way because they were watching, but they didn't see this happen. But my family was called and said, "Get there right away to the hospital. We don't think she's going to make it." As I stepped forward into that, I was put into a coma, life support. And the doctors kept telling my friends, which I found out later, that they didn't believe how strong I was fighting, how strong I was moving forward, how I was just fighting to live. And I was in the hospital for a month and then had 4 months of therapy, having to learn to walk normally again, talk. My brain was so much in pain that I couldn't think. Clearly, I couldn't recall words. I couldn't function as I'd normally had done. Just to get through a day was really hard. And so for my first 2 weeks of being at home, I just decided that I was going to be sad. It was a loss, and I wasn't going to just pretend I wasn't human and didn't experience pain. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to be okay with this. I'm going to cry. I'm going to get through this pain. But then after 2 weeks, I'm going to step forward. And what is that going to look like? How am I going to learn from this? And what am I going to make of this? So my journey became one of not looking at, well, why me? And why out of the 52 did it have to happen to me? But what am I going to learn through this? And how am I going to grow? And what I decided to learn was about my brain. I learned that the power of the brain can completely wipe your whole body out in a second. But that also means in your life too, by what you think. You can change, you can live, or you can live a life that's dying. You can choose things that aren't fully alive to you. You can live your life working every day, hating what you do, and creating, because you create how you're going to live and die that way. Or you can go after your purpose, your passion, your calling. And so I decided, I've been hugely successful in my life in the business world, but why? Is because I put people first. I'm passionate about people being fully who they are, wherever they are, and for them to live their strength and their calling and their purpose, and to be awakened to that, and to not just wake up in the morning and just do the so-called but to notice and to practice awareness. And the more that I practice my awareness, I've learned that I become more aware, which is awesome. And the more I become aware, the more I become aware. And just being conscious, being awake, just like I was dead and almost dead and unconscious in a brain injury. The opposite of my life now is being very conscious. Not just that I'm not in a coma anymore, but how am I going to live my life making a difference? Clearly, we all have a purpose. Clearly, we are like no other, unique and lovely and beautiful. And that's what I want people to see and to lead themselves in that life. And if you lead yourself in that life, you will be the best leader. You will model that. And that to me is leadership. How you lead your life is how you lead others. So practicing that skill and that purpose of going there and being fully that every day. And today, even so, I'm excited to share that I've learned even more what love means. I'm in a relationship that I'm not certain what's going to happen, but I've decided that committing and resolving to commit to loving my friends, this man that I'm involved with, as is, loving that person as is, in their ups, their downs, their idiosyncrasies, without expecting anything back. And giving that fully is actually freeing, because there isn't an expectation waiting from that other person. And it brings peace, it brings commitment to myself. How am I going to love myself in this? And also, for me, I struggle with fear at times and anxiety. And if I'm waiting for an expectation to happen or be fulfilled, that causes fear and anxiety. So if I can let that expectation go, it should be this way, or I want them to be a certain way, and let it go and just love myself and love that person and open a space for them to be who they are. Wow, that brings so much freedom and a loving space. So today I'm growing even in a deeper way. And I'm just trying to sit in that. I'm just trying to sit in that space of resolve of living in a space of love, which is the opposite of fear. So that's what I have to say for today right now.
Hallelujah. Wow.
Yay!
Man, you just gave such an awesome testimonial. And I heard details about your crash that I hadn't heard before. The first question that somebody had in the chat is, what year did this happen?
2013, June 1st of 2013.
2013. Okay, June 1st.
Yeah, June 1st.
Now, you are so bright and positive and coming across so beautifully. But one thing I know is that you still have some residual effects of this accident, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Would you mind sharing what some of those are?
Yeah. At times my brain just goes on a glitch and I still can't think of the words I want at that moment in time. Sometimes I just can't do things as quickly as I'd want. Sometimes looking at the computer or putting all the technical stuff is difficult for me. Also, because of where my brain was injured, I struggle with my emotions. I'm a passionate person, but sometimes those emotions come out even bigger. And so I've had to, and still have to, want to learn to manage my emotion, my feeling, and not let it overtake me. So that is a moment by moment choice, and learning what that means moment by moment is still what I am learning. Mm-hmm.
So 3 things that you mentioned in your story that are really, really powerful, that are keys to resilience. And one of the first things that you mentioned was you gave yourself permission.
Mm.
Permission to be human, permission to grieve.
Yes.
And one of the things that really kicks our butts is all of this BS in our culture about walking it off, keep a stiff upper lip, don't show your vulnerability. Whoever came up with that needs to get their head out of their butt. That's just nonsense.
Yes.
We are passionate, emotional human beings. It's part of what makes us human. It was the emotion on September 11th that compelled us to rally together. It wasn't an intellectual decision. Well, those people seem to be running and screaming. Perhaps I should get out of their way. Perhaps I should open the door. It's not that garbage. It's passion. It's that emotional connection we have with each other. And when I got diagnosed with my EDS and was learning, man, I can't walk to the park with my kids anymore. I'm having a hard time getting up these stairs. I was pissed for a while.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for myself. But then I said, you know what? I've just got to grieve the loss of the fantasy that I was going to be walking into my 80s. And then once I grieve that, I need to decide and here's the next thing you mentioned, what decision am I going to make about where to go from here? As opposed to thinking, I'm a big victim of my circumstances. How dare this happen to me? This is so unfair. And all the stories we tell ourselves about why, this might be hard to hear, folks, why we're so special that this shouldn't happen to us. Okay? Because when you say, why me? Why me? Well, why not you? You're just as human and fragile, and you're living in the same world as everybody else. You can collect all the accolades and all the trophies you want, but so long, and in my case, all the puppies, you can hear them in the background, but that's the reality of life too, right? Wow, somebody must be walking their dog. Hang on a second. Let me close my office door here. One of those life happens moments, huh, folks?
Yep.
Yeah, whenever they're little dogs and they're very anxious, and this is what happens. So what was I saying? My ADHD just went.
Mine did too.
Somebody in the chat room remind me what I was talking about. I think I was talking a little bit about, none of us is so special that we're immune to the realities of this world. I had cancer. I've had accidents that when my oldest boy, who is now 17, when he was 5, and my middle son, Aiden, was just, I think, 2 years old, we were coming back home from my parents and somebody ran a red light and slammed into the side of our minivan and it rolled over. And I had to get pulled out by paramedics. And it was a Chevy Venture that held together so well that we all walked away.
Wow.
But I could be saying, why me? This is terrible. Or I could just say, all right, this is me. This is a fact. This happened. What decision am I going to make about how to deal with this? And in that moment, in the ER, I gave myself permission to cry, to be afraid, to let go of the intensity of that experience. And then the next morning, I made a decision to make a list of what things I needed to do to take some kind of ownership of that situation. Call the insurance company, try and find a new vehicle.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you still have fear and anxiety sometimes. One of the biggest keys in getting past that is taking some kind of action. Because if you sit there, and yes, it's important to give yourself permission to have those emotions, but don't let that be the entirety of your experience. You can be anxious, frightened, upset, but take some kind of action. Because if you're not moving, it's really easy to feel trapped in that experience, right?
Yeah. And with that, it is what you say. It's what is. And noticing what is and accepting what is, instead of maybe conjuring up what isn't or how you want it to be, but just accepting what is and going into that flow of, okay, but now I have choices. And how do I want to respond to that? What is loving to yourself and loving to the other person. And it, like I said before, freeing. I know for my life, much of it has been trying to be other, get other than that. Change. Oh, it can't be. But accepting what is a big thing. But it changes everything. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I know you know this. Acceptance doesn't mean that you're good with it.
Right.
Like,
right.
This is a wonderful situation. I'm so glad this happened to me. Acceptance means you accept the reality of it.
Yeah.
That it's not fair, but it's the reality. And then making a decision of how you're going to move forward now that this is a piece of your story.
Yes.
I don't like the fact that my ex cheated on me and abandoned me and my boys to go run off with another guy. And mm-hmm. I was devastated for a while. But there was a point where I needed to say, I'm a single dad. These boys are still looking to me to figure out, how do we do this? How do we move forward? So the acceptance is, this is the reality. This is how it is. Now I've got to take some action. I've got to make a decision about how to move forward, even though this happened.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. What acceptance is about.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I think for me, you had mentioned the fear that I brought up and anxiety. And I think that a lot of what I'm also passionate about is the fear motivator that companies try to place on people in order for them to produce more. The fear that we take on, many of us choose to take that on in the business world. And what about the flip side of that? What about loving ourselves and loving the other, even in that space? And what does that look like? How can it be other than fear? And how can it be an even bigger motivator that will rock the business? Because really people are caring for one another as unique, loving beings versus trying to just get from them the whole expectation and the whole results issue. What is it to really put that person first and notice them as a person who has value and purpose, and how can they co-collaborate with them in that space versus placing an expectation of a certain result, and then maybe there isn't an alignment and a lot of fear creeps in. So it changes everything if you view life that way and the business world. And that's what I see my success has been with teams and leaders, is if they can really go to that space of not living in fear, not producing out of fear, not driving out of fear. But how do we show up as loving beings for ourselves first and those around us? That's the whole thing about John Mackey and his Whole Foods, why he's been so successful, is that he believes in what I say. And so a sustainable life, a sustainable business, a sustainable family, truly sustainable, is viewing and taking on that way, presenting action as love in action, action in love versus fear. And that's what I want to bring to this world. That's what I want to bring regardless. I want to love, period, and work through my stuff that comes up and give people the space to work through their stuff and let their awesomeness come out.
When you talk about the fear motivator in the workplace, I'm sure many of you, hopefully not too many of you, have encountered this. It's basically the belief of a supervisor or a manager that you're replaceable. You're a cog in the wheel. I could fire you tomorrow and replace you with somebody else. Then you start working from that place of anxiety of, oh my God, I hope I don't get fired. Well, here's something that these brainiac managers miss. Anxiety and fear does not make you resourceful. It does not help you think creatively. If they're looking for innovation, frightening you is not the way to get it. And like Deborah was just saying, it's proceeding with love, with support, with camaraderie, with the knowledge that, hey, I, as the business owner, I, as your employer, as your supervisor, as your leader, am here to help you grow. I'm here to see you grow so that you in turn can help the company grow and better the customer experience. And I wish that this was more of a commonplace experience, but it's not. there are so many more people out there that are fear-driven, intimidation-driven, these small, insecure egos that like to use their employees as whipping posts.
Yeah.
And you know what they get? They get high turnover is what they get.
Right.
All of their talent leaves because they treat them like garbage. Now, you mentioned, what's the name, the CEO of Whole Foods again?
John Mackey.
Okay. I want everybody listening to Google him, okay? Because a while back, Deborah shared with me an interview that he did. I don't know if it was a podcast or a video, but in terms of leadership, this man is so enlightened in terms of his approach to his company and the employees. Yeah, Whole Foods is a really expensive place to shop. But in terms of their mindset, it's really something worth modeling. So I want to encourage you to look that up, okay?
Absolutely.
Now, what has been your experience in taking this experience, this horrific bicycle accident, this brain injury that connected you with your emotions, with your purpose, the importance of going out there and living from that place of love, and translating that into the work you do with leadership in corporations? What kind of changes have you been able to help companies make because you're living this way?
Yes. I've seen teams. Just last week, I received 9 emails from one logistic tech firm. 9 different individuals emailed me saying, wow, my life has been changed. My work has been changed. I see my coworker as a human first. We collectively relate better. We communicate better. We respond better to our clients because there's less fear. They feel valued. They feel supported. And then my work with the leaders, they have also seen their teams come alive and be more creative, more productive, better end results. The leaders also have been growing personally and leading their teams as they have decided, I'm going to make changes within. It's an intrinsic awareness that these people are having, not just producing more as the end result, but they've been changed from the inside out. And being changed from the inside out is the most exciting thing, because these people that emailed me from this company last week said, truly, their life has been changed because they walked into being coached with me feeling accepted for who they are. And what better way to live in that space, to work in that space? And so making that culture shift of acceptance of the other and awareness of the other, and letting the other person bring out their greatness while you bring out your greatness, and only being 100% responsible for you, not the other guy, not blaming them, but what is your 100% responsibility in this space, and how do you want to move forward? That has been what has been the enlightenment there. And it's just been, it's really exciting to me because that's my passion, and the teams see it and they've taken it on. Mm-hmm.
That is so amazing and so refreshing.
Yeah, it is. It's really refreshing.
To be able to go in and change a person's experience of themselves, their lives, their relationships, that is so awesome. Now, everybody that's watching, I want you to connect with Deborah somehow. Follow her on Twitter, find her on Facebook, go to her website. But in order to do that, we need to know what it is. So, Deborah, tell everybody watching where they can find you out there in cyberspace.
Deborah at deborahsunderland.com. You can also see me, my website, my email is the same, and Twitter is Deborah Sunderland on Twitter.
Hallelujah. Well, I hope you all realize just how amazing a person Deborah is. And I'm so glad we got over the little technical glitches.
Me too. Thank you for
able to have this conversation. One little nugget I want to leave with the folks here is I have a membership program called the Resilience Accelerator Network, which is where I provide coaching for people around the globe on how to be more resilient. And because this podcast is becoming such a rich source of content, I've decided to transcribe every episode and put those transcriptions in the Resilience Accelerator Network. So if you want to get word for word of Deborah's brilliance, or on the off chance I said something useful, you can find it in there as well. So I'm going to sign off for right now. And I also want to let you know to come back in about half an hour, because I'm going to be doing another episode. Now, I'm really maximizing my Friday here. So thank you again, Deborah. Big hugs to you. You're
Thank you,
totally
Brian.
awesome.
Thank you. You rock, man.
We'll be talking again soon, as we always do.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. And I'll see